A wealthy CEO left his paralyzed wife. 3 years later, he saw her daughter as a rising business star. The Austin Convention Center lights dimmed as animated graphics displayed a spinal regeneration process. The exact condition her mother had. The exact technology Landon's company had the resources to develop, but abandoned. Just like he'd abandoned Melanie Bennett when she needed him most. Have you ever watched someone walk away when they promised to stay? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The man who abandoned her mother sat 10 feet away in the front row, unaware the woman at the podium had spent 3 years planning for this exact moment of recognition in his eyes. Aria Bennett gripped the edges of the podium, her knuckles white against polished wood as she clicked to the next slide. She'd rehearsed this presentation 50 times, but nothing prepared her for the jolt of seeing Landon Wells in person. His silver streak hair and commanding presence exactly as she remembered from the night he'd walked out of their lives. Our rehabilitation technology doesn't just assist recovery, she continued, voice steady despite her racing heart. It revolutionizes it. The Austin Convention Center lights dimmed as animated graphics displayed a spinal regeneration process. The exact condition her mother had. The exact technology Landon's company had the resources to develop, but abandoned. Just like he'd abandoned Melanie Bennett when she needed him most. Recognition flashed across his face. First confusion, then shock as he straightened in his chair. The tech mogul who'd left her paralyzed mother for a younger, whole woman was finally seeing what they'd become without him. Have you ever watched someone walk away when they promised to stay? Aria asked the audience, but her eyes locked on Landon. Have you wondered what you'd say if you could face them again? Not as you were, but as who you've become. The crowd shifted uncomfortably at the personal turn. Today isn't just about technology, Aria smiled. It's about reckoning. The conference hall buzzed with whispers as Aria clicked to her next slide. Her mother's accident report alongside Landon's divorce filing, dated just 8 weeks later. The gasp from the audience was audible, but not as satisfying as watching all color drain from his face. 3 years ago, Melanie Bennett survived a crash that paralyzed her from the waist down. Aria continued, her voice carrying through speakers to hundreds of investors. 2 months later, her husband decided a wheelchair didn't fit his lifestyle. Landon stood abruptly, but remained frozen in place as photos appeared on screen. Her mother in hospital, neck braced, eyes hollow. Then Landon at a Seattle charity gala months later, arm wrapped around a willowy blonde half his age. What you're seeing isn't just my family's tragedy. It's the inspiration behind Bennett Neurotech. Aria clicked to product specifications. When the healthcare system and my former stepfather decided my mother wasn't worth investing in, we built something ourselves. The prototype appeared on screen, an elegant exoskeleton with neural interfaces. Market potential, $4.7 billion annually. Clinical trials showing 78% improved mobility in patients previously deemed permanent cases. She emphasized those last words, watching Landon's jaw tighten. We didn't just survive abandonment. We turned it into innovation. Landon's phone lit up in his hand. His eyes flicked between the screen and Aria as she concluded her presentation. Bennett Neurotech is seeking Series B funding of $20 million. She paused deliberately. And offering exclusive first rights partnerships to select investors who understand the value of standing by people when they can no longer stand themselves. The audience erupted in applause as Aria gathered her notes. Through the crowd, she watched Landon push toward the exit, phone pressed to his ear. The man who once controlled her family's future was running, exactly as she predicted. Her own phone vibrated with a text from her mother. He's calling his team. You rattled him. Aria smiled as she accepted congratulations from investors crowding the stage. 3 years of engineering school, building prototypes, and cultivating connections had led to this moment. What none of them knew was that the presentation wasn't really about securing funding. Bennett Neurotech already had private backing. This was about making Landon Wells witness what he'd thrown away before she took everything else from him. Ms. Bennett, a deep voice cut through the crowd. A tall man in an impeccably tailored suit extended his hand. Derek Calder, Calder Industries. I'd like to discuss your company, privately. Landon's biggest competitor. Aria's smile widened as she took his hand, feeling unexpected warmth spread through her at his touch. Perfect timing, Mr. Calder. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss. Behind them, the screen still displayed her mother's accident report. Phase 1 of a revenge, 3 years in the making. Melanie Bennett hadn't stood in 3 years, but watching her daughter confront the man who abandoned her gave her something better than walking. It gave her purpose. She closed the laptop as the live stream ended, wheeling herself from the desk to the window of her Charlotte home. Outside, spring had painted the neighborhood in colors that once brought her joy. Now, they simply marked time passing. Seasons changing while she remained trapped in the same broken body, in the house Landon had generously left her in the settlement. The same house where he'd packed his bags that night, his shadow tall against the bedroom wall. "I can't do this, Mel," he'd said, voice steady like he was declining a dinner invitation rather than shattering 20 years together. "This isn't the life I signed up for." Melanie closed her eyes against the memory, focusing instead on Aria's triumph today. Her brilliant, beautiful daughter who'd channeled rage into creation, who'd refused to accept her mother's fate as final. Her phone rang. "Aria, you were magnificent," Melanie said immediately. He ran. Aria's voice crackled through the speaker. "Just like you said he would." Of course he did. Landon always protects himself first. Melanie adjusted her chair, wincing at the perpetual discomfort. "Did Calder approach you? Already setting up a private meeting?" "Mom, you should have seen Landon's face when he recognized me, when he saw what we've built." Melanie smiled, remembering the night after Landon left. Aria sobbing at her hospital bedside, promising to make him pay. Back then, it had seemed like a child's empty threat. Now, it was becoming beautifully real. "Just be careful with Calder," Melanie cautioned. "He hates Landon for reasons that have nothing to do with us. That's why he's perfect. He has the resources we need." Melanie wheeled toward the bathroom, phone cradled against her shoulder. "Has Landon tried to contact you yet?" "No, but he will." His assistant was already scrambling. The plan was unfolding perfectly. Use the conference to blindside Landon, attract Calder's attention, then leverage both men's egos to fund the final development stage of their technology. Technology that might actually help Melanie walk again someday, regardless of revenge. "I should be there with you," Melanie said, guilt edging her voice. "We agreed. You're the secret weapon. If Landon knows we're working together, he'll be prepared. Adi opposite. Besides, your condition still affects him. My sources say he keeps tabs on your medical records. Conscience catching up, perhaps, or covering his tracks. Either way, we use it." After they hung up, Melanie stared at her reflection. Older now, lines etched by pain rather than age. She'd loved Landon completely once, had believed in forever. The doorbell rang. Through the security monitor, she saw a sleek black car in her driveway. And stepping out, Landon Wells himself. 3 years without a word, and now he stood at her door. Right on schedule. The private dining room at the Austin Reserve cost $5,000 to book, but watching Landon Wells squirm under her gaze was worth every penny of her company's new investor money. "You ambushed me yesterday," Landon said, voice controlled as he adjusted French cuffs that probably cost more than Aria's monthly rent. "Rather publicly. Did I?" Aria sipped her water, letting silence stretch between them. "I don't recall mentioning your name once during my presentation. You displayed my divorce papers on screen. I displayed my mother's medical reality. If that reflects poorly on your choices, that's not my concern." Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the tension between them. A billionaire tech mogul meeting his match in a woman half his age who carried twice his resolve. "What do you want, Aria?" Landon asked finally. Direct. "I've always appreciated that about you." She opened her portfolio, sliding across financial projections. "Bennett Neurotech needs $20 million for our next development phase. We're offering 10% equity." Landon laughed, a short, harsh sound. "You dragged me through mud publicly to pitch me investment opportunity? You could have called my office." Would you have taken a meeting? His silence answered for him. You have two options, Landon. Fund my company's next phase, or I release the emails where you told your boy my mother was damaged goods while pursuing your current wife. The color drained from his face. How did you? Your former assistant was quite helpful after you replaced her last year. Apparently, loyalty works both ways. This was a bluff. They had no emails, but Arya had practiced this moment for months, perfecting the exact mix of confidence and disdain. Landon's eyes narrowed, calculating. You've grown up. Necessity does that. And if I invest, the emails disappear. They stay exactly where they are, insurance against future abandonment. Arya leaned forward. Considerate motivation to remain committed this time. His laughter was unexpected, echoing off the restaurant's marble surfaces. You remind me of myself, he said, leaning forward. But you've miscalculated something critical about me, Arya. I don't respond well to threats. As he stood to leave, he dropped a folder on the table. Before you continue this path, review these materials. You're not the only one who's been busy for 3 years. Inside were photos of Arya meeting with Landon's business rival the previous month. You're playing a dangerous game, Landon said quietly. And Derek Calder isn't the ally you think. Ask yourself why he's really interested in your technology. He walked out, leaving Arya staring at surveillance photos she'd never seen coming. The hunter had just become the hunted. The executive suite of Calder Industries overlooked Seattle's rain-soaked skyline, the perfect backdrop for two people plotting against the same man for entirely different reasons. Landon knows we've met, Arya said, placing the surveillance photos on Derek Calder's glass desk. He's been tracking me. Derek Calder, 45, devastatingly handsome in that manufactured way of men with personal trainers and private chefs, merely smiled. Of course he has. You're his weakness. I'm his problem, Arya corrected. You're his conscience, the living reminder of what he sacrificed for success. Derek circled his desk, leaning against it casually. Too close. That makes you valuable to me. His office screamed power, steel, glass, and calculated minimalism that matched his reputation as the man who almost destroyed Landon Wells once before, until Landon's medical logistics platform outmaneuvered him in 5 major markets. I came to discuss funding, Arya reminded him, ignoring how his cologne triggered something primal in her nervous system. This was business, not attraction. 20 million is nothing, Derek waved dismissively. I'll transfer it tomorrow. But money isn't what you really want, is it? It's what my company needs. What about what you need, Arya? His voice dropped lower. Revenge isn't satisfied by making Landon write a check. You want him to suffer like your mother suffered. Heat flushed through her body. Anger mixed with something she refused to acknowledge. You don't know what I want. I know exactly what you want, because I want the same thing. Derek pulled up digital displays showing Landon's company holdings. Wells Medical Technologies is vulnerable. Their stock dropped 8% after your presentation. Shareholders are asking questions about the man who abandons family obligations. What are you suggesting? A partnership. Your technology, my resources, Landon's destruction. Derek's smile turned predatory. We don't just want his money, Arya. We want everything. His company, his reputation, his future. The realization hit her like cold water. She'd wanted justice, but Derek wanted annihilation, and she'd just handed him the perfect weapon. Why do you hate him so much? She asked quietly. Derek's expression hardened. That's not relevant to our arrangement. But it was something personal burned beneath Derek's polished exterior. Something that made Arya suddenly question her own motivations. Was she pursuing justice for her mother, or satisfying her own need for retribution? I need time to consider, she said finally. Time works against us. Landon's already moving to counter. Derek stepped closer, his hand brushing hers as he handed her a secure phone. This can't be traced. I'll contact you tomorrow for your decision. His fingers lingered against hers, sending unwanted electricity through her veins. Choose wisely, Arya. There are no partial victories in this game. As she left, rain pounding against the windows reminded her of tears her mother had shed while Landon packed his bags 3 years ago. Some betrayals demanded payment in full, but at what cost to her own soul? Melanie wheeled herself onto the porch as Landon's luxury SUV pulled into the driveway. The first time he'd returned to the home they once shared since walking out 3 years ago. Spring had transformed their once-shared garden into a riot of colors. Flowers Melanie had planted with her own hands after mastering her new limitations, creating beauty where Landon had only seen tragedy. "You look well," he said, climbing the accessibility ramp he'd had installed before leaving. "Spare me pleasantries," Melanie replied. "Why are you here?" 3 years had added silver to his temples, but taken nothing from his commanding presence. He wore success like a second skin, tailored suit, expensive watch, the confidence of a man who controlled rooms, companies, lives. "Arya approached me," he said simply. "My daughter is a grown woman making business decisions. Nothing to do with me." We both know that's not true. Landon remained standing, hands in pockets. "She's using her company to punish me for leaving, for abandoning a paralyzed woman who loved you for 20 years, Melanie corrected, adjusting her chair slightly. "Let's be accurate." His expression tightened. "I provided for you. The house, the medical trust, everything except loyalty." Melanie's voice remained calm, though her heart raced traitorously in his presence. "Why are you really here, Landon? Surely not to justify old decisions." "I came because Arya is making dangerous allies. Derek Calder isn't interested in medical technology. He wants revenge against me, and he's using your daughter to get it, as opposed to our daughter using him." The possessive slipped out before she could catch it. Landon's eyes softened momentarily. "She was always more your daughter than mine. A choice you made." He moved closer, unexpectedly kneeling beside her wheelchair. When he reached to adjust her blanket, their hands touched briefly, sending unwelcome warmth through her fingers. "I didn't come to apologize," Landon said, his voice catching. "I came to make a different offer, one that benefits all of us without destruction. I'm listening. I'll fund Arya's company, not as an investor, but as a partner. My medical logistics network, her technology. We can help thousands of patients like you, while conveniently saving your reputation." Melanie raised an eyebrow. "While building something meaningful from our broken parts." His hand rested near hers on the wheelchair arm. "The research matters, Mel. It could change lives." For a moment, she glimpsed the man she'd loved, passionate about medical innovation, about making difference. The man who'd spent nights explaining breakthrough treatments, eyes alight with possibility, before the accident shattered everything. "Why should I trust anything you say?" she asked quietly. "Because despite everything, you know me better than anyone." Her phone buzzed with Arya's text. "Don't trust him. I found something worse than we imagined." But Melanie's finger hovered over the phone, unexpectedly tempted by the sincerity in her ex-husband's eyes. "You walked out without looking back," she whispered. "That's not entirely accurate," he replied, voice low. "There are things you don't know about these past 3 years." "Then enlighten me." "Not here." Landon stood, glancing toward the street where a car had slowed suspiciously. "We're being watched. Tomorrow, my office. I'll send a car. I don't need your assistance." "This isn't about need, Melanie. It's about protection. Calder will target anyone close to me, including you and Arya." As he walked away, Melanie watched his shoulders, still straight, still bearing invisible weight. For the first time in 3 years, she wondered if there might be another side to their story. The medical file Arya discovered wasn't supposed to exist. Much like the experimental treatment Landon had secretly funded for Melanie's condition, while letting her believe he'd abandoned her completely. Rain pounded against the window of her Austin apartment as documents spread across her floor told an impossible story. Millions funneled through shell companies into a research facility working exclusively on spinal regeneration techniques that matched her mother's exact injury profile. "This can't be right," she whispered, cross-referencing dates. The timeline was damning. 2 weeks after leaving her mother, Landon had established a research foundation under a different name. 3 months later, he'd recruited top neurologists from across the country. For 3 years, while Melanie believed herself forgotten, a team of scientists had been working on her specific case. Aria's hands trembled as she sorted through financial records her contact at Landon's company had secretly provided. The numbers were staggering, over $40 million, all personally funded by Landon, not his company. Her phone rang. Derek called her for the 3rd time today. She ignored it. If these documents were authentic, everything she believed about her stepfather was wrong. The revenge she'd built her life around was based on incomplete information, possibly lies. She dialed her mother. "Has Landon contacted you?" she asked without preamble. "He was here yesterday," Melanie confirmed. "How did you know? Did he mention a research project? Something about experimental treatments?" Silence stretched between them. "He invited me to his office tomorrow. Said there were things I didn't understand about why he left." Aria closed her eyes, memories flooding back. Landon's expression when he'd first seen her at the conference. Not just shock, but something deeper. Pain, perhaps. Or guilt. "I think he's been funding research for your condition since he left," Aria said. "Privately. Millions of dollars." "That's impossible." Melanie's voice hardened. "He made it very clear our marriage wasn't compatible with my paralysis. I'm staring at proof. Then it's a manipulation. He knows we're closing in, threatening his reputation." But doubt had taken root in Aria's mind. The detailed reports showed test results, progress milestones, work too extensive to fabricate quickly. She remembered Landon's unexpected words in the restaurant. "You're playing a dangerous game. Derek Calder isn't the ally you think." Her laptop chimed with an incoming email. Heavily encrypted, subject line, "What Landon Wells couldn't tell you." The sender, Camille Wells, Landon's current wife. "Mom, I need to call you back." The email contained one line: "Monarch Building, downtown Austin, 9 p.m. Come alone if you want the truth about your mother's treatment." Aria's mind raced with possibilities. A trap? A plea? Or something else entirely? The anger that had fueled her for years wavered against mounting evidence that the villain of her story might be more complex than she'd allowed herself to believe. She thought of Landon's eyes during her presentation, not just a man caught off guard, but someone recognizing a threat to something beyond reputation. Her phone lit up with another call from Derek. This time, she answered. "I've been trying to reach you," he said, voice tight. "Landon's making moves. His research division just locked down all servers." "How do you know that?" A pause. "I have sources inside his company." "What exactly do you want from me, Derek? Beyond hurting Landon, your technology completes what I need to acquire his medical network. Together, we control the future of neurological treatment." The pieces clicked together. This wasn't about helping her mother or even revenge. This was corporate warfare, and she was just a convenient weapon. "I need time to think," she said carefully. "Time isn't something we have. Landon knows we're working together." After hanging up, Aria stared at Camille's email, then at the documents revealing Landon's secret research. For 3 years, she'd known exactly who deserved her hate. Now, nothing was certain, except that tonight, she would meet the woman who had replaced her mother and discover which man was lying. Camille Wells wore diamonds worth more than most homes, but her hands trembled around her coffee cup as she whispered, "If you destroy him now, you'll never know why he really left your mother." The private room at the Four Seasons Hotel was designed for discretion, perfect for the current Mrs. Wells to meet her husband's former stepdaughter without triggering the media frenzy both women desperately wanted to avoid. Aria studied the woman her mother had been replaced with. Younger, yes, but not the empty trophy wife she'd imagined. Camille's eyes held sharp intelligence, and the fingers nervously tapping against fine china bore the calluses of someone who'd worked with laboratory equipment. "You have 15 minutes, Aria said. "Explain why I shouldn't go forward with my plans. Because you don't have all the facts." Camille reached for her purse, removing a tablet. 3 years ago, Landon was positioned to take Wells Medical Technologies global. The day after your mother's accident, the board called an emergency meeting. She slid the tablet across the table. On screen, meeting minutes marked confidential. They gave him an ultimatum: divorce Melanie or lose control of the company. A CEO with a permanently disabled wife wasn't part of their 5-year strategy. That's disgusting, Arya said, but hardly exonerates him. He made his choice. No, Camille leaned forward. He made a different choice entirely. He left to protect her, not abandon her. By marrying you within a year? Spare me. By securing enough voting power to protect the research that could help her walk again. Camille's voice remained steady. Our marriage was strategic. I was already head of neuroscience research at Princeton. My family holds significant shares in Wells Medical. Together, we created enough leverage to prevent the board from shutting down the spinal regeneration program. Arya's throat tightened. You expect me to believe your marriage is some noble sacrifice. I expect you to verify everything I'm telling you. Camille pulled up more documents. The board wanted to eliminate speculative research to focus on profitable existing treatments. Landon refused. When they threatened to remove him, he realized the only way to maintain control was to present a powerful, united front. With you, with someone who understood the science and shared his vision. Camille's expression softened. I admired his work for years before we met. The marriage protected both our interests. And my mother? Did she deserve to think she'd been discarded? Pain flashed across Camille's face. That was the hardest part. If Melanie knew the truth, the board would realize they were being manipulated. The research would be terminated immediately. Arya stood, pacing the small room. This is convenient fiction. Why would he hide the research from us now? The project is obviously established. Because it's finally working. Excitement crept into Camille's voice. Phase 2 clinical trials show 87% neural regeneration in cases matching your mother's injury profile. We're months away from FDA review. And Derek Calder knows this, Arya realized aloud. Calder wants the patents. With them, his pharmaceutical division controls the treatment protocol worth billions. Camille's eyes hardened. He doesn't care about healing patients. He wants to own their recovery, charging whatever the market will bear. Arya thought of Derek's intense focus on acquiring her technology, his determination to destroy Landon's company. Why tell me this now? Why not years ago? Security protocols. We've had 2 break-in attempts at the research facility this month alone. Camille reached across the table, an unexpectedly human gesture. I know you hate him. I know you hate me. But your mother deserves the chance this treatment offers. The revelation crashed against 3 years of carefully constructed hatred. If Camille was telling the truth, Landon had sacrificed their family to save her mother's future, had weathered Arya's public attack rather than expose the research to corporate interference. Proveit, Arya demanded. Show me this miraculous research facility. Camille slid a security key card across the table. Basement level, Research Wing B, tomorrow night. See what your stepfather has really been doing for 3 years before you decide to destroy him. As Arya reached for it, Camille gripped her wrist. But understand this, if you go, you can never unknow what you'll discover. And if Calder realizes you've seen it, everyone associated with the project becomes a target. Arya pulled her hand away, keycard clutched between her fingers. I've based my entire company, my entire life, on making Landon pay for abandoning us. If you're lying, I'm not. Camille stood, gathering her things. For what it's worth, he talks about you. Your brilliance. How proud he is of what you've built, even knowing it was fueled by hatred of him. He abandoned my mother when she needed him most. No, Camille said quietly. He gave up everything that mattered to him personally to save what mattered most to her, the possibility of walking again. After Camille left, Arya sat alone, 3 years of righteous anger colliding with the possibility she'd been wrong, that her revenge mission had actually threatened the very thing her mother needed most. Her phone vibrated, Derek Calder requesting an urgent meeting tomorrow. The keycard felt impossibly heavy in her hand, a weight made of doubt and possibility. Tomorrow night, she would discover which version of Landon Wells was real. The biometric scanner pulsed green as Arya held her breath, granting her access to the one place she was never meant to see. The underground lab where Landon had spent millions trying to undo what happened to her mother. Clinical white light illuminated rows of sophisticated equipment humming with purpose. Each machine part of a singular mission captured in the project, name emblazoned on the wall, Melanie Protocol. Aria's heart hammered against her ribs as she moved through the empty lab. It was nearly midnight, the facility operating with minimal overnight staff, as Camille had promised. Security cameras had been temporarily looped, giving her 15 minutes to see the truth without being detected. The scale was breathtaking. At least 30 workstations surrounded a central testing area. Holographic displays showed spinal cord structures rotating in 3 dimensions, with damage patterns identical to her mother's injury. Incredible, isn't it? Aria spun to find a young man in a lab coat watching her from a doorway. "You shouldn't be here," she managed, backing away. "Neither should you, Ms. Bennett." He stepped forward, hand extended. "Dr. Marcus Chun, lead researcher on neural pathway regeneration. Mrs. Wells said you might visit." Aria didn't take his offer hand. "Camille told you I was coming? She thought you might need more than empty files to understand what we're doing here." His smile was disarming, his face younger than she'd expected for someone leading a revolutionary medical project. "I followed your work, actually. Your microfiber delivery system would integrate perfectly with our neural stimulation protocol." Despite herself, Aria felt a flutter of professional pride. "You know my research? Mr. Wells had us analyze your technology 6 months ago when you published preliminary results." He gestured to a nearby workstation. "We've been adapting some elements into our own approach." "Without my permission," she noted, but her indignation felt hollow amid the evidence surrounding her. "Professional courtesy. We cited your work." He moved to a central console, pulling up detailed scans. "This is your mother's actual spinal injury, mapped 3 weeks after her accident." The holographic display showed damaged vertebrae and severed nerve pathways, clinical confirmation of the injury that had changed everything. "And this," he continued, pulling up a comparative scan, "is our latest simulation showing potential regeneration using the combined protocol." The damaged areas glowed with new neural connections, bridging gaps that doctors had declared permanent. "You're saying this could help her walk again?" Adia whispered. "Not just walk, potentially full recovery." His excitement was palpable. "We're 3 months from human trials. Mr. Wells hired me specifically because my doctoral research focused on injuries matching your mother's profile." Aria's mind raced. Everything Camille said appeared true. The lab was real, the research advanced, all focused on Melanie's exact condition. Why keep this secret from us? From her. Marcus's expression grew serious. "Corporate politics. The board tried to shut us down twice, claiming resource misallocation. Mr. Wells had to create this as a separate entity, funded from his personal accounts. If they knew this was specifically for his ex-wife." He shrugged. "They call it emotional decision-making, not sound business." Aria thought of her own company, built from determination to prove Landon wrong. The irony wasn't lost on her. While she'd been creating technology to help her mother out of spite, Landon had been doing the same out of, what? Guilt? Obligation? Or something deeper he couldn't acknowledge, even to himself. "Mrs. Wells mentioned you're working with Derek Calder," Marcus said carefully. "A potential investor. He tried to hire me last year, offered triple my salary." Marcus moved to a sample storage unit, voice dropping. "When I declined, his people attempted to access our servers. They don't want to advance this research, Ms. Bennett. They want to control it." Before Aria could respond, security alarms blared through the facility. On the monitor, she watched Derek Calder's security team entering the building's main floor, their movements coordinated and purposeful. "They're not here for research," Marcus said, face pale. "They're here to destroy it." "That's impossible. How would they know?" Aria froze, remembering her phone. Derek had insisted she use the secure device he provided. "He tracked me." Marcus was already moving, fingers flying across keyboards, initiating emergency protocols. "We need to back up everything and get out. They can't access the secure servers without physical presence in this room." Aria pulled out Calder's phone and smashed it under her heel. "How much time do we have?" 3 minutes before they override security. "Maybe less." He thrust a small drive into her hands. This contains the core research protocols. Everything needed to recreate our work if something happens here. The weight of understanding crashed down on her. She hadn't just been wrong about Landon. She'd actively helped his enemy target the research that could heal her mother. "Call Landon," she urged. "Already done." Emergency response team is 8 minutes out. Marcus glanced nervously at the elevator indicator showing Calder's team descending. "Too late for us." Arya pulled out her personal phone, dialing the number she'd never deleted. When Landon answered, his voice was tight with concern. "I didn't know," Arya whispered. "Landon, I swear I didn't know what he planned." His response came immediately. "I know. Now help me save your mother's future." As security doors began sealing automatically, Marcus pulled her toward an emergency stairwell. "There's a service exit through the parking structure. If we move now, we might avoid them." The facility plunged into emergency lighting, red warning lights casting everything in blood-colored shadows. 3 years of research, her mother's chance at walking again, now threatened because of her misguided revenge. "I'll fix this," she promised, clutching the drive that contained her mother's future as they raced toward the stairwell. Behind them, the elevator doors opened. Derek's voice echoed through her earpiece. "You've played your part perfectly, Arya. Now step aside while we take everything Landon built, starting with the research that could save your mother." She pressed against the wall of the supply closet where she and Marcus had taken refuge, the small space forcing them close enough that she could feel his heart hammering against her shoulder. Outside, boots thudded on polished floors as Calder's security team swept the laboratory. "I can hear you breathing, Arya," Derek continued, his voice unervingly calm. "My men are tracking your phone signal. Be smart about this." Marcus gestured frantically at her phone. She switched it to airplane mode, silencing Derek's voice. "How many exits?" she whispered. 2. Main elevator and emergency stairs, both covered now. Marcus's breath warmed her cheek in the darkness. "Service elevator needs key access, which you have." He nodded, pressing a keycard into her palm. Their fingers tangled briefly, the human contact grounding her racing thoughts. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in pulsing red as researchers frantically backed up data. 3 years of work teetering on destruction as security doors sealed one by one, trapping everyone inside. "Why does he want the research so badly?" Arya whispered. "It's not just about spinal treatment," Marcus explained, voice barely audible. "The neural pathway regeneration has applications across dozens of conditions. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke recovery. Whoever controls this protocol controls the future of neurological medicine." The stakes suddenly magnified. This wasn't corporate rivalry or personal vendetta. This was the future of healing itself. A crash sounded outside as Calder's men forced open a secured cabinet. They had minutes, possibly seconds. "The drive," Marcus nodded toward her pocket. "If they get it, they won't." Arya's mind raced through options. "We need a distraction." Marcus glanced around the supply closet, grabbing chemicals from shelf. "Maintenance sink in the corner. These will create smoke. Not dangerous, but enough confusion for us to reach the service elevator." As he mixed compounds, Arya's phone vibrated with an incoming text, somehow bypassing airplane mode. "Landon, security team 2 minutes out. Northeast service entrance. Creating diversion now." Almost immediately, alarms blared from the building's upper floors. "That's our chance," Arya said. Marcus nodded, mixing the final chemicals. On 3, their eyes locked in the red-tinted darkness, the closeness of danger creating unexpected intimacy. Acting on impulse, Arya leaned forward, pressing her lips against his in a brief, fierce kiss. "For luck," she whispered against his startled mouth. He blinked, then refocused. 1, 2, 3. The chemicals hit the sink, creating billowing white smoke that poured from the closet as they flung open the door. Shouts erupted as visibility dropped instantly. Arya felt Marcus's hand grasp hers, pulling her through the haze toward the service corridor. Behind them, Derek's voice rose above the chaos. "Find them. The drive is all that matters. They reach the service elevator, Marcus's key card trembling against the reader. Nothing happened. Override protocol, he realized with horror. They've locked down all elevators. Footsteps approached through the smoke. Trapped. The facility doors burst open as armed security flooded in. But they weren't Derek's men. These were the distinct tactical gear of Wells Medical Security. Ms. Bennett, the lead guard, said, "Mr. Wells sent us to extract you in the research. We have 4 minutes before this building's ownership transfers to Calder Industries." "What?" Arya asked, confused. "Legal maneuver," the guard explained, ushering them toward the stairs. Mr. Calder filed emergency acquisition papers claiming research theft. A judge granted temporary facility control effective midnight. Marcus clutched the research backup to his chest. "We can't let them access the main servers." "Already handled," the guard assured him. "Remote wipe initiated 5 minutes ago. Nothing remains on local drives." As they hurried up the stairs, Arya processed the implications. Landon had sacrificed years of physical research to prevent Calder from accessing it. Had prioritized protection over pride. Outside, 3 identical black SUVs waited, engines running. "Protocol scatter," the guard instructed. Dr. Chun takes Vehicle 1 with the backup. Ms. Bennett in Vehicle 2. Decoy in 3. As they separated, Arya caught Marcus's eye across the parking lot. His nod conveyed everything words couldn't: determination, fear, unexpected connection. Inside her assigned vehicle, a secure phone waited. It lit up with Landon's message: "Meet me at your mother's house. Bring the drive. Tell no one." Below it, a second message appeared from an unknown number: "We know what you took. Return it, or your mother pays the price." The SUV pulled away as Calder's security vehicle screeched into the parking lot. Too late to stop the coordinated escape. 3 years of believing Landon was the villain, and now she was fleeing with him against the man she trusted as an ally.
The drive in her pocket felt impossibly heavy, the weight of her mother's future and her own massive misjudgment. $300 million of research fit into a drive smaller than her palm. All that stood between her mother's paralysis and a future where she might walk again. Rain pelted the parking garage as engines roared to life. 3 identical black SUVs pulling away simultaneously while Derek's men scrambled to identify which vehicle carried the research that could revolutionize spinal treatment and make billions in the process. "Stay down," instructed the driver, a woman with close-cropped hair and the hyper-focus of someone with military training. Glass is bulletproof, but no sense taking chances. Arya clutched the drive, overwhelmed by how quickly everything had unraveled. Yesterday, her path had seemed clear: make Landon pay for abandoning them. Today, she was fleeing from a man she trusted, protecting research Landon had secretly created for her mother. "Where are we going?" she asked as they weaved through downtown Austin traffic. "Secure location first, then private airfield." The driver checked mirrors constantly. 2 pursuit vehicles detected, initiating countermeasures. A second Wells security team in an unmarked car pulled alongside them, then deliberately slowed, blocking the trailing vehicles. Area's secure phone buzzed with updates from the other transport teams. Marcus had successfully reached the airfield. The decoy team was leading Calder's main security force in the opposite direction. "Your stepfather runs an impressive security operation," the driver noted, taking a sharp turn down an alley. This protocol was activated with 8 minutes' notice. Because he'd been prepared, Arya realized. Landon had anticipated this moment, had known his research might be targeted, and had contingencies ready. How many other things had she been wrong about? The car suddenly braked hard, swerving into an underground parking structure. The driver killed the lights, guiding the vehicle into a dark corner. "Vehicle swap," she explained, pointing to a modest sedan with rental plates. 60 seconds. As they transferred to the nondescript car, Arya glimpsed the driver's sidearm, the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this before. Not just corporate security, specialized extraction teams. "How long has Landon been preparing for this?" she asked as they pulled back into traffic. now looking like any other late-night traveler. Mr. Wells established the Protective Services Division 3 years ago, specifically focused on research security and personnel extraction. The woman's eyes met areas in the rearview mirror, initially centered around 2 primary protection targets. "Let me guess," Arya said quietly. "My mother and me." The driver nodded once, then refocused on the road. For 3 years, Arya had channeled her pain into punishing Landon, while he had apparently been protecting them from shadows they never saw. The realization sent heat to her cheeks, embarrassment mixed with confusion. "We have confirmation of pursuit," the driver announced, checking her mirrors. 2 vehicles, coordinated movement, likely Calder's secondary team. Arya's heart raced as their car accelerated, weaving through light traffic. "Can we outrun them?" "Not the point. Just need to delay until—" The driver smiled slightly as police lights flashed behind their pursuers. "Until that. Anonymous tip about suspected drug traffickers. Should buy us 20 minutes. The car turned onto the highway heading east, toward Charlotte. Toward her mother. "Mr. Wells is already en route to your mother's residence," the driver confirmed, answering Arya's unspoken question. "Dr. Chun has been extracted to the secondary research facility with the backup data." The kiss flashed through Arya's memory, impulsive, adrenaline-fueled, but with an unexpected spark she couldn't dismiss as merely circumstantial. Marcus's surprised eyes, the brief moment of connection amid chaos. Her phone lit up with Landon's message. "Extraction successful. Meet at your mother's house. Bring the drive. Tell no one." Below it, a second message appeared from an unknown number. "We know what you took. Return it, or your mother pays the price." Arya's blood went cold. "We need to hurry. My mother might be in danger." The driver immediately increased speed, a hand moving to her earpiece. "Command, requesting status update on Nightingale location." After a moment, she nodded. "Your mother is secure. Mr. Wells arrived 20 minutes ago with a protection detail." Relief flooded through Arya, followed immediately by a new anxiety. She would soon face both Landon and her mother with the knowledge that her revenge mission had nearly destroyed everything. That she had been catastrophically wrong. The highway stretched before them, cutting through the Texas night toward North Carolina, toward confrontation, reconciliation, and truth 3 years overdue. The small drive pressed against her palm. Not just research data, but the physical embodiment of a devotion she had refused to believe existed. Melanie watched her daughter and ex-husband enter her living room together, an impossible sight that told her something had fundamentally changed in the war she'd helped orchestrate. Landon looked exactly as he had 3 days ago on her porch, but now tension lined his face. Arya appeared completely transformed, her confident veneer cracked, showing the uncertain young woman beneath all the corporate armor. "You're both here," Melanie stated, wheeling herself to the center of the room. "I assume this means our careful plans have fallen apart." The Charlotte home that once witnessed their family's dissolution now held them in uneasy alliance. 3 people connected by betrayal, revenge, and the fragile possibility of redemption as rain lashed against windows secured by newly arrived security teams. "Mom," Arya began, her voice small. "Everything we believed about Landon, about why he left, we were wrong." Melanie's eyes snapped to Landon. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing," he answered quietly. "She found the research facility." "What research facility?" Melanie's fingers tightened on her wheelchair arms, though she already suspected the answer. Arya knelt beside her mother's chair, placing a small drive in her hand. "He's been funding treatment research for your exact spinal injury. For 3 years. Millions of dollars, the best scientists, all focused on helping you walk again." Melanie stared at the small device, then at Landon, searching for deception in his eyes, but finding only exhaustion. "Why would you do that after walking away?" "It makes no sense." "Because the board gave me an ultimatum after your accident." Landon moved to the window, checking the security perimeter outside before continuing. "Divorce you or lose control of the company." "So you chose your company," Melanie said, familiar bitterness rising. I chose the research, he corrected. If I stayed married to you while running the company, the board would have scrutinized every decision. They'd already flagged the spinal regeneration program for termination. Too speculative, too costly, too far from guaranteed results. You could have told me. Melanie's voice trembled slightly. If anyone knew my true motivation, the board would have seen through it. I needed a clean break, a clear story they would believe. That you abandoned your broken wife for a younger model? That was your clear story? It worked. His voice held no pride, just tired resignation. They never connected Camille's research foundation to Wells Medical. Never realized the technology development was continuing under different names. Arya placed her hand over her mother's. Mom, I've seen the lab. It's real. They're months away from human trials with an 87% success rate in cases matching your injury profile. And Calder? Melanie asked, mind racing to reconstruct 3 years of assumptions. Wants the research, the patents, everything, Arya explained. He tracked me to the facility tonight. His team tried to seize all the data. He's threatened you directly, Landon added, showing her his phone with a message about Melanie paying the price. That's why we secure the house. He'll use anyone connected to me as leverage. Melanie closed her eyes, absorbing the implications. 3 years of nurturing hatred, planning revenge against the man who had actually sacrificed everything to help her. The man she had once loved beyond reason. I left because they threatened to destroy the research that could help you walk again, Landon finally admitted, his voice dropping. They said they'd bury it if I stayed with you. A paralyzed wife was bad for shareholder confidence. So I gave you everything else and kept only what I needed to find your cure. As understanding dawned in Melanie's eyes, security alarms blared through the house. On the surveillance monitor, Derek Calder himself walked up the front path, accompanied by the last person any of them expected, Landon's current wife, Camille. She betrayed you, Arya whispered, watching the monitors. Landon's face revealed nothing, but Melanie caught the slight tightening of his jaw, the tell he'd always had when truly hurt. No, he said after a moment. Look at her posture, the way he's gripping her arm. She's not a willing participant. Melanie studied the screen. Camille's face was rigid with fear. Calder's hand indeed clamped around her elbow. He's using her as a shield, Melanie realized. He knows you won't risk her safety. Landon nodded once, already moving toward the door. Keep the drive secure. It's everything we've built. You can't just go out there, Arya protested. I don't see much choice. He has my wife. Wife. The word struck Melanie with unexpected force. Despite everything she'd just learned about Landon's sacrifices for her, that simple word reminded her that their lives had diverged. That regardless of his reasons, he had built a new life that included another woman. There's always a choice, Melanie said, wheeling forward. And this time we make it together. Landon turned, surprise evident on his face. 3 years ago, you decided what was best for me without my input, she continued. You don't get to do that again. Their eyes locked across the room. Ex-husband and wife, separated by betrayal and sacrifice and misunderstanding, but connected by something that had never fully died. Calder is after the research, Arya said, breaking the moment. Not revenge against you. If we give him the original data, but keep the recent breakthroughs. We negotiate, Melanie finished. From strength, not fear. Landon's mouth curved in the ghost of a smile, the first genuine one Melanie had seen in years. Together, then, he agreed as the doorbell rang. Camille's smile held no warmth as she entered the room where her husband stood beside his ex-wife. Did you really think I wouldn't discover what you've been hiding all these years, darling? Lightning illuminated the room in harsh flashes, casting dramatic shadows across faces locked in a battle where the stakes had suddenly become life-altering for everyone involved. Careers, futures, and Melanie's chance to walk again, all balanced on the edge of destruction. Derek Calder followed, his expensive suit immaculate despite the storm, 2 security men flanking him. His eyes took in the room's occupants, lingering on Arya with something like disappointment. Family reunion? He asked pleasantly. How touching. Let Camille go, Landon said evenly. She has nothing to do with this. Calder's laugh lacked humor. Your wife has everything to do with this. Head of research, keeper of passwords, and apparently. His grip on Camille's arm tightened, quite the actress. Camille's eyes met Aria's briefly. I'm sorry. He was waiting when I got home. What do you want, Derek? Landon asked, though everyone knew the answer. The complete research files. Not the decoy data your people tried transferring tonight. The actual Melanie protocol, with all development history and patent applications. Aria shifted closer to her mother, hand protectively near the drive in Melanie's pocket. You've spent 3 years creating something revolutionary, Calder continued, hiding it from your board, your shareholders, even the FDA. All for a woman you divorced. His eyes flicked to Melanie. Touching, but legally problematic. You're not concerned with legalities, Landon responded. Just profits. I'm concerned with fair market operation. You've developed a treatment that could help millions, yet kept it private for one person. Calder released Camille, who immediately moved to Landon's side. That's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal misuse of company resources. Private funding, Landon corrected, not $1 of company money. Your board might question that distinction, especially when they learn you've been operating a shadow research division while telling them spinal regeneration wasn't commercially viable. The threat hung in the air, corporate destruction alongside personal ruin. Melanie wheeled forward slightly, drawing all eyes. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Calder? He smiled, apparently pleased to address the central figure in the drama. Simple. I want the research and control of Wells Medical. In exchange, no one hears about Landon's deception or his misappropriation of corporate opportunities. I want the research and control of your company, Derek stated flatly. Or tomorrow morning, your board receives proof you violated your fiduciary duty by spending company resources on your ex-wife while lying to shareholders. A heavy silence followed. Aria looked between the players, calculating angles and outcomes like chess pieces. This isn't about corporate ethics, she said finally. You don't care about shareholders or fiduciary duties. You want the patents because the applications go beyond spinal injuries. Calder's expression flickered, surprised that she understood the bigger picture. Neural pathway regeneration has applications across dozens of conditions. Aria continued. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke recovery. Whoever controls this protocol controls the future of neurological medicine. Smart girl, Calder acknowledged. Exactly why I wanted to partner with you initially. Before you used me to locate the research facility. Business, he shrugged. Nothing personal. Landon's eyes met Melanie's across the room, a silent communication passing between them before he turned to Derek. Take the company, he said calmly. But the research stays with Melanie and Aria. The unexpected concession silenced everyone. Calder's triumphant expression faltered slightly. Camille's laugh cut through the room. You think it's that simple? You don't even know what your precious research actually contains. All eyes turned to her. Even Landon looked confused. The Melanie protocol isn't just a treatment, she continued, stepping away from her husband. It's a platform. The applications extend beyond neurological conditions to cellular regeneration across multiple systems. Camille, Landon warned quietly. No more secrets, she insisted. The secondary applications we discovered last month, heart tissue regeneration, liver cell restoration, they're potentially more valuable than the spinal treatments. Calder's eyes gleamed with undisguised greed. Then my offer stands. The company and all research. Counterproposal. Melanie spoke up, her quiet voice somehow commanding attention. Wells Medical continues under current leadership. The Melanie protocol becomes a separate entity, jointly owned by all of us in this room. Why would I agree to that? Calder asked. Because otherwise, I release everything we have. Tonight, open source, worldwide. Melanie held up the drive. No patents, no ownership, no billions in profits. Just healing, available to everyone. The threat made Calder go still. You wouldn't destroy the commercial potential of your own cure. Watch me. Her finger hovered over her phone. My daughter built a company to help people like me, not to create monopolies on healing. Arya stared at her mother, witnessing a strength she'd somehow missed all these years. Not just resilience in facing disability, but moral courage when faced with temptation. Landon's eyes never left Melanie's face, something like pride mixed with another emotion too complex to name passing across his features. Think carefully, Derek, Landon advised. Share profit is better than none. The options crystallized in the tense silence: cooperation or mutual destruction. Partnership terms, Calder finally said, the word clearly distasteful to him. Equal ownership, but I control distribution. Equal ownership, Melanie agreed, with oversight committee approval for all distribution decisions. Pricing must remain accessible. You're in no position to dictate terms from a wheelchair, Calder snapped. The casual cruelty silenced the room, except for Landon, who moved with surprising speed, his hand suddenly at Calder's throat. Apologize, he said quietly, or our negotiation ends differently than you planned. The Melanie Protocol wasn't just a treatment for spinal injuries. It was a revolutionary platform that could rewrite the future of medicine and make whoever controlled it the most powerful person in healthcare. Landon's laptop projected molecular structures across the dining room wall, complex diagrams demonstrating how the spinal regeneration technique could be adapted for neural pathways, organ regeneration, and disease reversal that would disrupt trillion-dollar pharmaceutical industries overnight.
The confrontation with Calder had ended in tense détente. He'd left with a preliminary agreement drafted by Landon's legal team, summoned in the pre-dawn hours. Now, as morning light filtered through blinds, the core players gathered around Melanie's dining table to understand what they were truly fighting over. The breakthrough came 9 months ago, Camille explained, controlling the presentation with practiced precision. We were focused on nerve regeneration when we discovered the protocol affected cellular memory, essentially allowing damaged cells to recall their pre-injury state. Arya leaned forward, professional curiosity overcoming personal tension. That's theoretically impossible. Cells don't have memory in that sense. Conventional wisdom agrees with you, Camille nodded. But conventional wisdom is wrong. We found a way to access what we're calling the cellular blueprint, the original programming that exists in every cell of the body. Melanie watched the technical exchange, understanding enough to grasp the implications. You're saying this could help conditions beyond paralysis? Far beyond, Landon confirmed, scrolling to new slides. Heart disease, liver failure, retinal degeneration, possibly even neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's. Early tests show promise across multiple applications. The scope took Arya's breath away. Her company's technology, designed for targeted medicine delivery, would perfectly complement this breakthrough. Together, they could create treatment protocols that would transform medicine itself. Now you understand why Calder wants it, Landon said, and why I couldn't risk the board shutting down the research. This goes beyond quarterly profits or shareholder returns. This changes everything. Melanie studied her ex-husband as he explained complex medical concepts with a passion she remembered from early in their marriage. His face animated, hands gesturing to emphasize key points. The man she'd fallen in love with decades ago, before success and corporate demands had hardened him. The original injury models were based on your specific case, Camille told Melanie, her professional demeanor softening slightly. Every simulation, every test was designed around your spinal damage pattern, Landon insisted. The revelation settled over Melanie like a physical weight. For 3 years, while she nursed hatred and planned revenge, Landon had poured millions into finding her cure, had sacrificed their marriage, his reputation, and risked his company, all to help her walk again. When can we start human trials? She asked, voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Landon and Camille exchanged glances. That's complicated, Camille answered. Officially, we're at least 6 months from FDA approval for trial protocols. And unofficially, heartwarming. The treatment is ready now, Landon said quietly. We validated safety parameters beyond standard requirements. It's why Calder moved when he did. he learned we were preparing the final review submission. Melanie's fingers gripped her wheelchair arms. "You're saying I could be your first patient?" "Yes." Landon held her gaze. "But it comes with risks. We believe in the protocol, but without formal trials." "I'll do it," Melanie interrupted. "Mom," Arya began, concern evident in her voice. "This was always the goal, wasn't it?" Melanie looked around the table. Everything, the research, the secrecy, the sacrifice, it was all leading to this moment. Landon moved closer to her chair, kneeling beside her as he had on her porch days earlier. This time, he deliberately took her hand. "It was always for you," he confirmed, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Every decision, every compromise, even leaving, it was all to get you here." The intimate gesture sent warmth radiating up Melanie's arm, awakening feelings she'd buried beneath years of resentment. His touch felt simultaneously familiar and new, like returning to a beloved place changed by time. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, the question encompassing everything. His departure, his research, his continued devotion despite their divorce. "Would you let me leave if you knew? Would you have maintained the fiction we needed to protect the research?" She considered his question honestly. "No, I would have fought for us, for our marriage, and the board would have killed the project immediately." His eyes held regret, but not apology. "I chose your healing over our happiness." The naked truth of his admission silenced the room. Arya looked away, giving them privacy in this exposed moment. Camille's expression remained carefully neutral, though something flickered in her eyes watching her husband hold his ex-wife's hand. "The treatment protocol requires 6 sessions over 3 weeks, Camille explained, breaking the tension. "If we start tomorrow, we could see initial neural response within days." "And Calder?" Arya asked. "He won't just disappear because we drafted an agreement." "We proceed carefully," Landon answered, reluctantly releasing Melanie's hand to return to business. "The partnership gives him financial interest in our success, but we maintain operational control." Melanie stared at the complex molecular structures still projected on her dining room wall. The physical manifestation of Landon's devotion transformed into scientific breakthrough. Tomorrow, then, she decided, a mixture of hope and fear coursing through her. "We start tomorrow." For hours before her worldwide announcement, Arya sat beside her mother's bed, the weight of changing global medicine balanced against the certainty that powerful people would stop at nothing to prevent it. 2 weeks had passed since Melanie's first treatment. 2 weeks of breathtaking progress, meticulous documentation, and growing tension with Calder, whose representatives monitored every development with barely disguised impatience. "You should be resting," Arya chided gently, adjusting her mother's covers. Melanie smiled, her face glowing with an energy Arya hadn't seen in years. "How can I rest? I wiggled my toes yesterday. Actually wiggled them, after 3 years of nothing." The milestone had reduced both women to tears. Melanie from joy, Arya from the complicated realization that her revenge mission had nearly prevented this moment from happening. Outside their Charlotte home, media trucks lined the street, awaiting the press conference scheduled for noon. The announcement had been carefully orchestrated, a revolutionary medical breakthrough with potential applications across dozens of previously untreatable conditions. What the press release didn't mention was that Melanie Bennett would be the face of this breakthrough, the first human success story, already showing neural regeneration beyond anyone's expectations. "Are you nervous?" Arya asked, checking her mother's vital signs displayed on the bedside monitor. "About the announcement?" "No." Melanie adjusted herself higher against the pillows, the movement requiring less assistance than even a week ago. "About what comes after?" "Absolutely." Arya understood her concern. Once the protocol went public, everything would change. The carefully balanced partnership with Calder would face external pressures, regulatory agencies, competing pharmaceutical companies, international interest. Landon has contingencies for everything, Arya reassured her. "The patents are secured, the data protected. It's not the business aspects that worry me," Melanie admitted. "It's the human cost." How many people will be desperate for treatment we can immediately provide? How many will be exploited by those promising quick access? The moral weight of their breakthrough had kept Arya awake at night. They were about to announce hope for millions of patients worldwide, but hope without immediate delivery was its own kind of cruelty. The manufacturing scale-up is already underway, she reminded her mother. Landon's facilities are being converted as we speak. At what cost to him? Melanie asked quietly. The question hung between them. Landon had leveraged everything for this moment. His company, his marriage, his future. The board was already calling emergency sessions, questioning his judgment and leadership. Arya's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Security checkpoint reports increased activity. Calder's team requesting access to medical data. Their partner was getting nervous, pressing for advantages before the public announcement. 4 hours before her worldwide announcement, Arya sat beside her mother's bed. The weight of changing global medicine balanced against the certainty that powerful people would stop at nothing to prevent it. Once you do this, there's no going back, Landon had warned during their strategy session yesterday. The companies that profit from treating these conditions rather than curing them will come after all of us. Arya's response had been unwavering. Then we make sure the information spreads too far to be contained. The plan was simple but effective. Simultaneous release of key research findings to medical centers worldwide, ensuring no single entity could suppress or control the breakthrough. Parallel patent filings across multiple jurisdictions, protecting the core technology while allowing for humanitarian applications. Landon entered the room, his presence filling the space as it always had. 3 weeks of constant proximity had worn away some of the awkwardness between them, replacing animosity with cautious respect. The legal team just confirmed our filings are complete, he reported. Once we go public, the protocol is protected. His eyes met Melanie's, softening in that way Arya had noticed happening more frequently. Some fundamental shift had occurred between them. Not reconciliation exactly, but a reopening of possibilities that had been closed for years. How are you feeling? He asked Melanie, his professional tone failing to mask genuine concern. Strong enough to change the world today, she answered with a smile. The monitor on Landon's hip buzzed. He checked it, frowning slightly. Problem? Arya asked. Camille was supposed to deliver the final data package to the broadcast team. She's not responding to messages. Concern flickered across his face. His marriage to Camille, originally strategic by their own admission, had become increasingly strained as his focus returned to Melanie. Another casualty of choices made years ago. I'll try her, Arya offered, stepping out to make the call. Alone with Melanie, Landon moved closer to her bedside, taking the chair Arya had vacated. Second thoughts? He asked quietly. None, Melanie assured him. But I'm thinking about what comes next. For all of us. His hand found hers atop the covers, the gesture now familiar after weeks of treatments. One day at a time. First walking, then dancing, Then what? Landon, she pressed, needing to hear him articulate the possibility that had been growing between them. Before he could answer, Arya burst back into the room, face pale. Camille's not answering because she's with Calder. His team just bypassed security at the broadcast facility. They're trying to control the announcement. Landon stood immediately, years of crisis management kicking in. Activate the contingency release. All channels, all locations. Already done, Arya confirmed. But there's more. The water sample from Mom's room last night, it contained traces of a compound that would counteract the treatment protocol. Someone's been tampering with her medication. As cameras prepared to go live, Melanie's monitors suddenly spiked. Her breathing labored, skin pale. Something's wrong, the home nurse said urgently. The water bottle at Melanie's bedside showed traces of powder around the rim. Someone had reached them despite all precautions. Landon's face transformed with cold fury as he connected the implications. Get the medical team in here now, and find Calder. The culmination of 3 years' work, the moment of triumph. was suddenly transformed into a race against deliberate sabotage. 1 year after the protocol went public, Melanie Bennett took her first steps on a stage in Austin. The same stage where her daughter had once confronted the man who now stood supporting Melanie's elbow as 3 years of treatment finally delivered its promise. Medical centers across America had implemented the Bennett-Wells protocol, their joint name a testament to how enemies had become partners, then family again, different than before, but stronger for having been broken and deliberately rebuilt. The auditorium erupted in applause as Melanie walked, slowly but steadily, to the podium. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for medical journals and history books alike. Behind her, Landon watched with naked pride, while Aria stood at the side of the stage, tears streaming unashamedly down her face. 3 years ago, I was told I would never stand again, Melanie began, her voice carrying through speakers to the packed audience. Today, I'm not just standing. I'm walking into a future I never thought possible. The journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. Calder's attempt to sabotage Melanie's treatment had failed, but the aftermath had been chaotic. His deliberate contamination of her medication, designed to create treatment failure before the public announcement, had been proven in court, resulting in his removal from the partnership and subsequent criminal charges. Camille had testified against him, revealing his threats and coercion. The testimony had effectively ended her marriage to Landon, not through betrayal, but through mutual recognition that it had served its purpose. Their divorce had been quiet, respectful, and marked by continued professional collaboration on the research they'd built together. The protocol bearing my name doesn't belong to me, Melanie continued, gripping the podium for support. It belongs to the thousands of patients who've already received treatment and the millions who will in coming years. The statistics displayed behind her told a story of transformation. 87% success rate in spinal injury cases, 74% in neural pathway regeneration, expanding applications across 12 major disease categories. Numbers that represented lives changed, families reunited, futures reclaimed. Some people would have used this to become billionaires. The interviewer noted from her seat nearby. Aria's response brought tears to the audience. My mother taught me that walking again was never about the steps themselves. It was about who stands beside you when you take them. The journey had transformed them all. Aria's company had merged with the research division Landon had created, forming a new entity focused on accessibility rather than profit maximization. The patent structure they designed ensured reasonable returns for investors while preventing price gouging or restricted access. Landon had stepped down as CEO of Wells Medical, choosing to focus entirely on protocol distribution and development. The move had shocked Wall Street, but surprised no one who had witnessed his devotion to the project and to Melanie over the past year. As Melanie concluded her remarks, Landon moved forward to help her from the podium, their hands clasped with the easy familiarity of people who had rediscovered trust. Not the blind trust of their first marriage, but something more durable, trust tempered by hardship, strengthened by forgiveness. Backstage, away from cameras, Landon helped Melanie to a chair. Though stronger every day, she still tired easily, her body adjusting to neural pathways awakened after years of dormancy. "You were magnificent," he told her, kneeling before her chair in a position that once would have symbolized their inequality, but now represented his choice to meet her at eye level. "We were magnificent," she corrected, reaching to touch his face, a gesture that had become natural again over months of cautious reconciliation. "All of us." Aria joined them, followed by Marcus Chun, whose research contributions have been instrumental in the protocol's final development. Their professional collaboration had blossomed into romance over late nights in the lab and shared dedication to patients' recovery. The European Medical Authority just approved expanded applications, Marcus reported, showing them his tablet. Treatment centers opening in Berlin, Paris, and Barcelona next month. And the accessibility program? Melanie asked, always focused on ensuring treatment reached beyond the wealthy. Fully funded, Aria confirmed. The foundation secured the final grants yesterday. The Bennett-Wells Foundation had become their shared mission, ensuring the protocol reached patients regardless of financial means. What had begun as Landon's secret project to help one woman now extended to communities worldwide. As the team discussed next steps, a reporter approached for a final question. Ms. Bennett, after everything that happened, the accident, the divorce, the betrayals and reconciliation, what would you say is the most important lesson from your journey? Melanie considered the question, her eyes moving from her daughter to Landon before answering. That healing comes in many forms, she said finally. My body is healing, yes. But the deeper healing happened when we stopped seeing each other as villains in our personal stories and recognized we were all doing the best we could with the information we had. In your relationship with Mr. Wells now, many have speculated about reconciliation beyond your professional partnership. Landon's hand found Melanie's, their fingers intertwining as they had increasingly often in recent months. Some journeys end where they began, but not as the same people, Melanie replied, the warmth in her eyes answering more completely than words could. As cameras flashed around them, three people who had nearly destroyed each other stood united. Their names now synonymous with both medical revolution and the complicated truth that sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the most profound healing. Landon's hand found Melanie's, their fingers intertwining as Arya stepped to the microphone to announce the protocol's next phase, bringing affordable treatment to those without means, ensuring that no one would have to choose between walking again and losing everything else that mattered. 3 years ago, I stood on this stage fueled by anger and a desire for revenge, Arya acknowledged to the audience. Today, I stand here with something far more powerful. The understanding that healing happens not when we get even, but when we get honest. Behind her, Melanie rose slowly from her chair, taking one careful step toward the future, then another. Each movement a miracle of science and human determination. Each step bringing her closer to the man who had never stopped believing she would walk again.